Welcome back, everyone. I'd like now to introduce our next keynote, who will bring an interesting perspective on the role of AI in chemistry. Mr. Shah Karim, former Board of Governors at YALE University, CEO SafeRock. Shah is the CEO of SafeRock and serves as advisor to Fortune 500 enterprises and investment group in North America, Europe, and Asia on strategy and digital transformation for consumers. He's on a board of directors of chemical marketing and economics, dedicated in accelerating diverse STEM talents for business, science, technology. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Shah Karim to the stage.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for inviting me, Dr. Sadun and GPCA. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. Now, you've probably all heard about ChatGPT and OpenAI over the last few months. And Dr. Sadun, I don't know how you did it, but 3 months ago, when we talked about coming here, somehow you knew that this was going to be big news. So you thought you should invite me to come here and speak for that. So I appreciate that very much. And I just have to say that if you had, it's fortunate that you didn't speak with my wife and children about it, because if you had told them that I was going to be invited to speak about the topic of intelligence, they would have disagreed with that judgment for now. But it's too late, I'm here, so let's hope that we have a good discussion today. I want to congratulate GPCA on your excellent team and the wonderful program that you've put together here. A round of applause for the team. Okay. So, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I want to bring together a couple of different topics under one umbrella in discussion today, including leadership, climate change, science, and risk management, because these actually come together in one way. So I'll go back to an experience I had in March 22nd of this year. I was at the WPC about to speak, and the Federal Open Market Committee was on deck to announce yet another series of interest rate hikes. And that weekend, Credit Suisse was bought for $3 billion with a markdown of from $6 to $3 billion in one weekend. And Silicon Valley Bank went into receivership with the FDIC. And Silicon Valley Bank, venture capital, private equity, supported 1,500 companies in climate tech and energy transition. Now, why do we care? And what does it tell us? It's that it's a highly interconnected world where risk is more pronounced than ever. And companies need profits, markets want stability, and free market prices help us match supply and demand effectively, and people want quality of life. These come together, and AI is a tool, if you will, to help us in these areas, not to replace it, but to support it. That's the best use of that. As Secretary General Antonio Guterres said at COP28, we cannot save a burning planet. In other words, there are no profits to be made on a dead planet. So AI has this interesting opportunity to be transformative because it can help to redefine chemistry, energy, healthcare, and infrastructure. But the present challenge that I just want to put in front of us, and I'm really standing on the shoulders of giants, not just you who are present, but those who have been honored in this program, of bringing together climate change, resource scarcity, and sustainable solutions. If I may, I would just like to take a moment to reflect on leadership. So in today's environment, it is especially important for leaders in organizations to be understanding and supportive of their teams. We should encourage collaboration between team members, help them to take risks, whether it's in AI or in their daily operations, provide support when they fail, and celebrate when they succeed. And I will say, at the lunches and the network breaks here, where I've had the opportunity to speak with people, I'm so encouraged by people who exhibit that type of skill and outlook. Leaders should speak with empathy and say, I hear you, I understand your challenges. And we must also acknowledge that diverse thinking matters and that leaders are key in terms of the values and experience they bring. And why do I say this? Because AI is a very flexible, very difficult for many of us to understand, but leadership is always going to be consistent. And that's the capstone that you need to have in place. So management has a responsibility to retain jobs and talent, monetize processes and data, and apply these learnings to improve shareholder value. And here are some questions that management should address. What is our operating plan? Where are the risks? Which markets are growing? Which are weak? And how can we better manage the process, both in S&OP, operations, and risk management, and capital, through these challenges? So 3 things that management want to do, and I remember speaking with Faiz, I don't know if you're here in the audience, we spoke about this. Management first wants greater clarity. We need to understand the situation before we act. Second, we would like to have the opportunity to look around the corner, to anticipate risks that may be coming our way. And third, it's our responsibility to do what we can to gain market share and win in as many markets as we can. So the opportunity is to harness AI to support management through this, to ensure that capital investments are adequate, while also factoring in investor needs. Does that make sense? That's a framework. And leadership and energy transition. So I'd like to speak a little bit about energy transition, of where AI can help within that. Broadly speaking, the objective is to help slow down the side effects, speed up innovation, and increase stability for markets and supply chain. So we have pollution in the air, in water, and in solids. In the air, it's a scientific fact that greenhouse gases increase risk of climate change, and we have a global population of 8 billion that would be impacted by it. In the waters, in the US, the EPA has regulations for PFAS in drinking water. And in solids, we know that these forever chemicals go down even through toilet paper into waste, sludge, and land. And in the atmosphere, what goes up must come down. We need balance in our atmosphere. And like we need in our lives, we breathe in and we breathe out. So, for example, soil breathes up 60 gigatons of carbon dioxide, plants breathe up 60 gigatons, and photosynthesis brings down 120 gigatons. So it's a natural cycle that we have there. Fossil fuels release about 6 gigatons, whether it's in coal, internal combustion engines, etc., and there's no natural counterpart to it. So like we had leaders before speak, CCUS and new types of R&D will reduce emissions and in future eliminate it. And carbon emissions are an externality. We need a price on that so that the markets can be stabilized and there's a floor to the contracts that enable market clearing. And it brings together material science, life sciences, energy connected to fundamental chemistry versus industry and manufacturing sectors. So let me switch to the topic of AI and operational excellence. That's a framework and background, right? what do we see as the actual industry challenges for operational and digital? And I can bring some examples that we know of from healthcare, from chemicals, and energy sectors. So to create greater company value, executive teams have to strengthen culture and leadership, ensure a seamless connectivity across internal teams, customers, and supply chain partners. Management must be able to look around the corner and establish clarity on growth plans while keeping both the customer value proposition and the company's financial runway in mind. And I believe that operational and digital excellence deliver a strong win for management. Some questions to consider are, can AI help me with operational restructuring and cost reduction? Can it help me better understand in greater detail and greater foresight the demand and supply by markets? Can AI strengthen my supply chain and manufacturing? And will it help enable a direct line of sight to the customer? So I can mention a couple of case studies, at least in our experience from SafeRock, of what we've seen and where it's helped in these three sectors. So in the chemicals sector, management in this case study was whipsawed by the mismatch between supply and demand cycles. The capital investments were long-term, and the demand cycles moved around. The challenge was, here we focused on, was how to better predict and match supply and demand where we could. And what we did there was we tackled the forecast models via three separate components, broke it down into for short-term, medium-term, and long-term, using different variables to forecast these components, and applying different tools and different skill sets to each part. The end result was that this enabled different parts of the organization to align and solve the challenge. The overall output key was we focused on improved capital allocation, not to put capital at risk. Now, besides this, chemical sector can deliver benefits for an important area: agriculture, precision agriculture, geospatial cloud farming that can guide in the future. You can think about it, it's not that distant a future. Tractors using sensors that precisely measure plant growth and then dispense exact amounts of pesticide and plant nutrients to optimize performance of the farm. In the E&P sector, an energy company we worked with was having regular cost overruns, and they wanted to improve their budget allocation because of this. So they weren't making money because they weren't making decisions backed up by data. Instead, they were making decisions based on emotion. And some of us have experienced this perhaps, maybe many of us have not, but I certainly have. And what would happen is whoever had the loudest voice in the room would win for resource allocation. Well, we need to temper this and support this with data. And what we did in this one particular case was that we understood that management wanted to improve shareholder value and apply more fact-based decisions. So we tackled this using dynamic big data models driven by AI. So we went from having 8 business units in this company, which had 12,000 wells, into 12,000 models, one for each well. A daunting task technically, but once you set it up, it gave much more accurate output results, and it was easier to operate once in place. The dynamic models were 76% more accurate than the analysts, and management discussions were now more focused. So before going into the meeting, they were prepared with the information and the options, and then went in to talk about resource allocation. An example of our strategic engagement, we recently advised a public company that had an activist investor on board and worked with the management team to go private. Final result was an $8.3 billion transaction at a 39% premium to initial market cap. We also supported a private equity firm to create shared services system for its portfolio companies covering the US, 12 countries in Europe, as well as suppliers in Asia. And this connected workflows, reduced costs, shortened time to market, and improved agility, all driven by analytics and AI, a particular application of it. And a third example is a consumer electronics firm, one of the top 5 players globally, that was transforming itself from a B2C to a B2B company. And we analyzed new markets, including cloud analytics, payment systems, and enterprise systems. 50 companies were referred to for their $2 billion in dry powder that the company had allocated for strategic acquisition. So let me move from these case studies to beyond just automation in terms of creating value and reducing risk. Bearing all this in mind, what are the end results and value propositions that GPCA members should be seeking? Are there any tips or tricks to look at? Where are the opportunities for AI to create value and reduce risk? In my opinion, I would separate the recommendations out into 2 groups: financial runway related and customer focus related. And it would be a privilege to discuss this in the GPCA format afterwards when you come up and you want to discuss any items further. The objective is to make the organization nimble and agile and reduce time to market. In terms of financial runway, there's a need to preserve and conserve cash, increase sales and EBIT, plus reduce the risk and uncertainty. It's a tangible goal, but I know the execution is difficult. And establishing a clear line of sight to customers is imperative while improving transition for the energy side, forecasting accuracy, enhancing supply chain resilience, and reducing risk for capital loss, eliminating out-of-stock situations, and operational risk. So 3 different parts of the chain, right? And there is significant opportunity for AI to improve supply and demand. And here's something which is really AI is very good at. It can find patterns within complexity. So when you have many different variables and seasonalities going on, it can actually somehow go through it and say, here's what's a reliable, repeatable pattern hidden inside the data. It's difficult for people to just look at it because we have brilliant senses, but we can't go deeper into all the variations. It can help predict chemical reactions, optimize processes, and create novel materials. And each of these is a different area of attack that one can lead through R&D processes to improve. So while AI is a tool for automation for the chemical sector, it can go significantly beyond just making processes faster. It can optimize reactions. See, for example, Barry Sharpless with click chemistry, Nobel Prize winner in 2022, reduce wastes and optimize economic returns. Looking at large historic data sets, AI can spot hidden patterns and predict most likely outcomes for reactions and drive lower energy chemistries. And it can open the door to novel materials and innovative solutions. And because of this ability to discern patterns within complexity, AI can better predict supply chain risk, optimize inventory, release working capital, and reduce safety stock, while also being able to improve sales forecasts by segmentation, zoning, and versioning of customers and markets. AI improves business operations through better analysis, including these sectors. And this is a sweet spot for us because we've devoted a lot of time into this. Let me move to fundamental science and policy. Fundamental science and AI is a very powerful combination, bringing together material science, life science, chemistry, industrial, and manufacturing processes. And there's deep advances in science that can impact this. From my personal point of view, and it's a limited experience, but the experience I've had with NASA, with YALE, with the University of Chicago, Argonne National Lab, and Columbia University, and I've had the privilege at the American Chemical Society for the last 2 years to organize their sustainability program along with NASA. You see people like Northwestern University Nobel Prize winner Sir Francis Stoddard working on biological lower energy chemistries. Chad Merkin at Northwestern working on methodologies to etch atoms and create combinations that have never been seen before in nature. At Yale School of the Environment, Indy Burke, Paul Anastas, Julie Zimmerman doing advanced work. Cheryl Ming at University of Chicago working on innovative battery technologies. These all come together, and they're using AI in all of these aspects of innovation. There are three broad categories of risk. One is physical risk of climate change, because the Earth is a swirling mass. There's gas, there's liquid, water, but it's just that little ball in space. There's financial risk of stranded assets, fragility, and contagion, which is the commercial infrastructure will be built on top of that. And then systemic risk, which is dynamic turbulence over time, what happens to create risk. And the objective is to control these. So fundamental science supports then a stable transition. And in a transition, I think of the entire supply chain of working it from source to consumption, every step of the way to reduce energy use in every slice, in every activity, and carbon intensity all along the way. And if you slice up the problem, you know what sort of tools you can apply to it. And in terms of the grid on the other side, you have to lengthen the longevity and the lifespan of every component of the existing electric grid, ensuring resilience with, for example, potentially small modular nuclear reactors allows us to manage, hopefully in the future, the peaks and valleys and the extreme situations better. I'll name some friends of mine who have helped me think about this, and I think of them as visionaries and leaders. Jim Fitterling at Dow, Martin Brudermuller at BASF, Tom Fink at Invesco, bringing industrial financial issues together to look at the holistic problem. At COP28, Darren Woods said that correctly that the challenge is eliminating emissions. In other words, carbon is not the enemy. We're made of carbon. We need carbon to live. It's the side effect of an undesirable release of carbon that is the concern. So we've had speakers yesterday, and we'll have some more today. Karen McKee from Exxon spoke very thoughtfully about this topic. Bob, I know you'll also be thinking about this and speaking later. I got a quote from Bruce Chin after he spoke yesterday, saying, we are thinking cautiously and optimistically about the opportunity of generative AI. So taking things a bit at a time, and I think that's very smart. Adriano Alfano, Jean-Marc Gilson spoke well also. Dr. Almulla, you spoke in your keynote in a very thoughtful way about this. And His Excellency Al-Mahdi, you encouraged me to talk about, where is the role of AI and how does it support us in the process. And we've had the keynote speakers, the ministers, speak about these big topics earlier also. Engineer Abdurrahman Al-Fahi, His Excellency Saud Sharida, Prince Abdulaziz, Salman bin Nasser, His Excellency from Oman. They laid out the concerns. It's very clear what all the concerns are. But what is up to us is to develop a strategy to bring these together, to know what is step one, to know what is step two and step three, and have options for dealing with each of the risks in these areas. So, in sum, bringing these together in terms of vision, assets, and science will lead us strategy forward. Now, there is no silver bullet at the corporate or at the policy level. At the corporate level, you have to form a team that brings together, and I know many of you already have it, you have such high-performing companies here, that bring together creative, financial, operational, and organizational experience. And leaders have to have the courage to dig deep, carefully, but fearlessly. And we have to see the rock face of reality, know what is truth, gather the facts, provide different points of view on that information, and ensure diversity of thinking, because that's a very powerful tool and because it matters. We must move forward. We must have a bias towards action. It's like if you're on a slope. If you stay neutral, you're only going to go back. Moving forward just keeps you at a standstill. So you have to work hard with that bias towards action. And you must have a 180-degree aperture of clear thinking, of data-driven decision-making. And AI helps to sharpen the focus and help us look at edge cases that are hard for us as people to absorb in our regular thinking. And that's where training of systems that you may have heard of allows you to replicate what the leader, the human being, thinks of, and then apply it to multiple situations. If done properly, AI will drive this with greater certainty and less risk. So I started with the importance of leadership and the role for you as leaders to foster an inclusive, productive, and supportive culture, because this is important for company success. In also what GPCA is doing in terms of our youth, in terms of our women and children, we have to encourage, because that's the future talent and that's the future of our society. As Peter Drucker said, culture eats strategy for breakfast, now powered by AI. Now, while we talk today about strategy and analytics, it's clear that culture sits on top of all this, along with leadership, and it provides the framework of success. So I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, what will you do after you leave from here? We have next year's program in Oman to look forward to. What can you do in terms of strengthening your resolve towards action and securing your company and assets and our society? You should consider your next steps, and that's what I would ask you to do. Add questions to your list, and also question your list. For GPCA, there are some wonderful opportunities, and I've mentioned some of them to you, Dr. Sadoun, in terms of what are potential new strategic directions that you would like to consider from the leadership team as you move forward towards Oman. How to strengthen the support for the next STEM generation with a mission-driven program. And GPCA has a fantastic opportunity to be a convening forum. In conclusion, what I can say is GPCA members have many interesting challenges that the organization can help you to assess, tackle, and improve. Let's work together to improve our world today, our companies, and the lives of our children for tomorrow.